Greetings and welcome to my next video. So update 5.2 just came out for Gwent. I took a look at it this morning. I also took a closer look at it while I was at work as well. So, you know, during my breaks I would just, you know, take a look at the cards again and see how it would affect gameplay. And in all honesty, if we're talking impact, I think this balance actually had quite a bit of impact on the meta, at least the meta that we wanted to change. So obviously they didn't update too many cards, which honestly was fine. I was pretty happy with the changes that did happen. So hopefully they continue at that pace, which is pretty good. And I also like how they included comments. Comments were really good added to this. Well, probably just for this particular one, simply because the update, like, there wasn't that many changes in the cards compared to last month. Last month there were a lot of changes, so imagine doing a bunch of comments for all of those changes. It's insane. I'm sure they have them, but it's like, you know, posting them all for every single one, honestly, like, I'd be reading a book from the Witcher series. So it's like, you know, it's gonna be that long if they were to do comments for every single one. But for this one, it was fine, and it was really good too, because again, in terms of impact, like, we sort of got an understanding as to how what was going through their mind when they made these changes, and you know, whether the change could have been better or not. Honestly, most of them were good for the most part, but we're gonna go through them. The ones I liked: updated Journeychora leader skin. This is a good one. I like this one because for those of you who don't know, I love the Fruits of Iskith ability. I love playing with it when I play monsters. It's sort of my go-to because I find that I'm able to play monsters. Monsters are the most efficient faction I can play with. All the other factions, I absolutely suck. But monsters is a faction that I can play with relatively well, at least better than the other ones. Still not good, but you know. Yeah, so I like this one. I noticed this one like right away, and it's like, dang, I really gotta see it. I really gotta play with it, you know? So yeah, so they did say that they wanted to make powder feel like special currency used for special purposes. So it's almost like they're making it in-game currency, where it's like, it's not money, but it's also not like as easily accessible as like scraps. So it's sort of like the in-between in a way. But I did like that they're making like ornaments, cards, character skins, sort of like they make you use up meteorite powder, because in all honesty, like, it's easy to get gold cards, and like, if you're not as like premium hungry as if you're premium hungry, unlike me, because I'm not premium hungry, as long as you have the card, you have the card, right? Sure, if you have premiums, like, you're cool and all, but it's like, you know, it's not necessary in my opinion. But at least they're using it for other purposes as well, which I think is really good. People can have more sort of means of buying accessories or any, what do you call that, cosmetic stuff, without having to use money. But I would still be willing to pay money for certain things, so it'd be pretty nice. So yeah, that's just everything I really have to say in regards to this part. Now we go over to the cards. Okay, so the new features. Oh, it's actually even the new features that's not even in here. Okay, that's fine. So neutral, we're gonna go straight to the cards. So Becker's Dark Mirror, not the only neutral change, but the first one here is that the provision has changed from 9 to 8. With this one, Becker's Dark Mirror is a card that I've thought about using in certain fun decks many times. I have yet to do one, but I think I will have one in the upcoming week, if not 2 weeks. Just because I really do want to play with as many of like the fun cards as possible. So expect to see more Sienna cards, cards like that have really fun abilities. Yeah, so Becker's Dark Mirror is definitely going to be part of that list of like those fun cards that I want to give a shot. So I will definitely try to get creative with it. This looks like a challenge. This looks like a challenge. I am going to accept this challenge. I will take it. Let's see if I can create a decently good deck with Becker's Dark Mirror. I will definitely show it. This is the next big one, and this is super impactful. Caretaker provision from 14 to 9, 2 to 7. And then the order is now purify a unit every 2 turns with zeal. So this makes me want to try the Morntard deck again. This also makes me want to try the Corrupted Flaminica Skellige Beast deck again. Because if you have like Gremist and Caretaker purifying beasts, which is super insane, you could potentially have one to counter status, like Poison and Lock, and while another one to sort of purify Doom from your beast. Imagine how much power the Corrupted Flaminica is gonna get for every beast in the grave. So if you were trying to run, I don't know, Gadeneth Swarm and then Corrupted Flaminica as your finisher, honestly, like, you can almost do that in the first round. Make sure you have a short third round, and then Corrupted Flaminica just comes out with a crap ton of points. That's just one way of seeing it. Canario. Caretaker no longer, by the way, it's funny, I saw this in a Reddit post, Caretaker. That's funny. Actually, someone made a post about like Caretaker's brother being Caretaker. That's actually really funny. So essentially double scenario is gone unless you're Nilfgaard, because Nilfgaard seems, for some reason, seems to have all the privileges when it comes to that kind of stuff, because Nilfgaard still has a Seer. But yeah, Caretaker no longer brings back Artifact, so I think that's actually really good. We can now diversify the play a little bit. Scenarios are still going to be strong, don't get me wrong. They're still pretty strong. They're not as strong as it used to be, that's all. You just don't get to play Siege twice anymore. But other than that, you'll still see scenario decks out there. They definitely will still be there for sure. But this definitely greatly weakens them. And now it makes me want to try the Morntart / the Corrupted Flaminica decks again. But we'll see. We'll see. Next is the Tesha Munta Sword. Funny enough, I was looking at this card literally last night. And I wanted to find a way to play it. This will not definitely do it. I mean, you change it from 8 to 7, sure. It's essentially either an Alzur's Thunder or you're destroying a Northern Realms card, because let's be honest, the only really viable faction that shields are used for is in Northern Realms. And yeah, it's not, I mean, if I could find something, like maybe if I were to combo it with the Lady of the Lake, give like maybe an enemy unit a shield and then just outright destroy it with the Munta Sword, that's potentially a thing, but that's probably a bit too much setup, and the opponent will probably predict it really quick and they'll counter it by pinging their own unit or whatever. But yeah, I mean, maybe consider reworking this card in a different way. Maybe that will do it. That will make this a bit more use. Might see this card, give this card more playing time, but from where it stands, it's just because of its ability. I don't know. Like, you're dealing 5 damage. Like, I can get an Alzur's Thunder to do that for an even cheaper cost. So, but yeah. Next, we move on to monsters, and this is my personal favorite change. Brewis, Weavis, and Wispus all got boosts in provision. Brewis power did have to go down, which makes sense, but the provision change actually is really great. There was a time where the Crones had to be involved in every monster deck you ran. That was the thing. But now they're slowly creeping back to that, because I think the Crones had a lot of potential then, and they still have potential, and I think this is actually going to make me want to try a Crone deck again. Now depending on like where I'd want to play this, I'm probably looking at a Death Wish / Thrive package. I might have to include some of those, because 5 power for Bruce is still a lot. I believe both Weavis and Wispus do have 4. And it makes sense because I believe the ability is you damage a unit by 2 on initial, but then if you played the other Crones, you damage it by 4. I think that's how it works. But yeah, so like they got stronger whenever you play them. So depending on which ability you wanted the most output for, you'd have to play them in a specific order. Where if you wanted to get the damage by you wanted to the max damage or the max boost, then you need to play that corresponding. I can't remember which one because I haven't played Crones in so long. But you need to play that corresponding Crone last, so you get their max output. The initial output is really weak. It's like, I believe it's just 2. But yeah, it's really good that the Crones are getting a boost, which is really great. I definitely can't wait to try them out in a deck in the future. And this one, I would say my second favorite change overall is that Morntart's provision went down to 8. I am so trying Morntart again. I am adding in that Caretaker, and I am going to start purifying beasts and drones, and man, this is going to be so much fun. Morntart, and I'm probably going to combo it with probably Petri's Filter, or if I'm going to choose to run Carapace, I could run Carapace and protect Morntart. Unless, of course, Tourney Joust is a thing, in which case, then it's just going to get destroyed. But, again, I can throw in a Defender Troll in there. So, many of ways to play Morntart, and I'm probably going to recreate or revise that Morntart deck I made last season. So I can't wait for that. Skellige's second wind provision changed from 15 to 14. That makes sense because second wind really was the most used Skellige leader ability from what I've seen last season. So yeah, not so much I can really say about that because Skellige wasn't the best. I think they were tier 2 at best. I don't think they were ever made it to tier 1. Like Wild Boar of the Sea was very powerful, but I feel like, you know, you kind of needed combos in there. Like you needed the Gore to stay alive. Second wind was definitely the card for that. Like if you wanted to bring back the Gore and then you play Wild Boar of the Sea. I was actually thinking of revising my my Big Hurt Skellige deck, but you know, with second wind nerfed, because it was initially Onslaught, but I was gonna go to the second wind, but you know, considering they got nerfed, I mean, I might still give it a shot, but I definitely will have to make changes to the cards that are in there for sure. Uncrate Longship power from 5 to 4 and the armor from 0 to 1. So this is the card that damages a unit that enters the field, an enemy unit that enters the field every time. Yeah, and it's the 5 provision for 5 power, and on the melee, then you know, every time your opponent plays a unit, then it gets damaged. It still has the same durability. Like, you still need a 5 damaging card, but at least, like, if anything, this really only became vulnerable to Piercing Missile. You damage by 4 and ignore the armor. It kind of it has a few more weaknesses now. Like, it can get destroyed somewhat easier, but it's like, you know, they are also not killing the card, right? Like, the card is still good. But like, you know, but like cards like that do bleed, it doesn't take as much bleeding anymore to destroy it. Of course, you can always move it, so that is an option as well. But yeah, it's still pretty good. It's still a good card, even with this change. So, but you don't get that extra point in power. That's really much it. Next is Freya's Blessing. Is you play a bronze, but you give it Doom. So this time you actually give this card Doomed. I've seen decks where they just spam Freya's Blessing in the first turn whenever you answer their engines, and I never found a problem with that because I always found that they're kind of using up their reses in round 1. And that was fine by me. But I think this, I'm not really looking at the, the comments, but it's kind of similar because I did sort of skim through them. But yeah, so the fact that this is saying it's not impacting the use of Freya's Blessings in most cases, really it isn't. And using a Grimace charge to purify it, which makes sense. Freya's Blessing, again, you can get 2 if not 3 copies of it, including Triss if you run Triss Telekinesis in your deck. But yeah, like you really have to think about which unit to bring back, because that's essentially your second and last chance to bring it back. Because let's say if you try to bring back an Uncrate Longship and your opponent answers it right away, it's gone. You're not going to be able to bring it back with another res. You're going to need to play another one from your deck, or if you don't have any more, you're on your own. You have to come up with a different way. So I like actually what it's doing, that it's sort of making you think a little bit more about what card to play. Like, you don't just want to go with your most powerful or most your most powerful card, because if they answer it in one turn, then that's it. It's done. I mean, I'm probably still going to do that myself in the off chance that they don't have an answer for it. But if they do, then, you know, you're going to have a bit of a problem. So you really have to think a bit more carefully now when using Freya's Blessing. Wild Boar of the Sea provision changed from 11 to 12. I remember CDPR saying that, or I think it was Jason Slama who said it, that they are going to nerf Wild Boar of the Sea because it was a very powerful card. Also, it was new. And it actually gave Skellige so much firepower that nerfing it was good. I like how the nerf was small. From 11 to 12, they didn't rework the card. They didn't change anything in the text. I like that. So it's still using the same ability. It's just that you're a bit more restricted when it comes to deck building involving this card. That's all. And in addition, like, you nerf this and you nerf Second Wind, Wild Boar of the Sea, it's not going to be as strong as it was anymore. Because you essentially just nerfed 2 provisions from, in my opinion, the most used Skellige deck in the last meta. So on its own, the nerf doesn't seem too bad, but then when you nerf 2 pieces of the meta decks, then it's a big deal, right? So, and this is definitely what I'm talking about. Next, we're moving on to Northern Realms. Added machine category to reinforce Trebuchet. Made me wonder why I didn't have it in the first place. And they got rid of the inspired ability. That's actually a good thing, because I feel like they were just getting way too many pings off for like, well, I wouldn't say for no reason, but it's like with an already powerful ability to ping your opponents, this one was just making it quite worse. And yeah, they did say it is easier to play around, but at the same time, it could be so easy, like, to bait your opponent to playing everything in the melee row and then probably just surprising them with some sort of Regis or like a Geralt Erdrin or whatever, a card that targets an entire row in the end. So you can also use it as a bait tactic, who knows. It also makes Siege just a little worse. I mean, you're getting rid of what? 5 points? 6 points? So, I don't know. I mean, that's a lot considering it's Siege, because Siege is a massive damage output. For 14 provisions, in my opinion. I think it should be 15 if they're even gonna plan to break that ceiling, but I doubt it. But yeah, it makes it worse, but not that much worse. Siege is still gonna be used regardless. So next we have scoia'tael, the Deadeye ambush provision from 16 to 15. So they thought that the ability rework was performing a little better than you expected, so they are bringing it down. In some ways, yes, this did make Vernociel and Swarm Elves much stronger. So it's not just Great Oak dishing out lots of damage anymore or lots of power swings, but Vernociel was doing the exact same thing now. With the more Swarm you got on the field, whether it's from Artifact or it's from the Deadeye ambush charges, Vernociel was getting stronger on its melee row. But in terms of play, I played it quite a bit, but I didn't see too many people play it. I saw maybe twice that it was played, and one of them was actually like sort of the inspiration for me to make that Redea Swarm Elves deck. So that was like the 1 out of the 2 times, but all the other times, like, I've seen myself play it quite a bit. So Precision Strike provision bonus changed from 16 to 14. This was the big one because Harmony Precision Strike isn't gonna be as strong anymore. Because I remember, like, yes, if you guys played 2 months ago, Mystic Echo Harmony was the biggest thing in the market, but then, or biggest thing in the game, why did I say market? But after Mystic Echo got hammered, Precision Strike started becoming the thing, and now Precision Strike is getting hammered, which I think is pretty funny. And yes, it does make sense. It is a source of removal, source of a setup, and a huge tempo play if you can keep the Dryads. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, come on. If you provide that many opportunities to ping, like, a Geralt is obviously going to come in. Right? So, what did you expect? It was gonna happen. An Igni was gonna come in, or if you were playing the Hongaith Sword, that would also come in. Not to mention, bringing out all those Dryads will also set up Great Oak, which again is really powerful. So, you know, what can you do, right? So, this I think was a really good nerf. Further going down the road, we got Dryad Ranger damage change from 2 to 1. So, again, if you're playing against Swarm, like with units that aren't as high power, then Dryad Ranger's damage was sort of affecting its ability to poison, because it's like, let's say you damage a 6 point card, but then you have, like, let's say Nature's Rebuke that could destroy it. Why would you bother completing the poison, which could use it on something else? So Dryad Ranger did both set up for removal and poison, which I thought was pretty powerful. Not to mention it had Harmony, so that was also another added thing. So this card was a really powerful card. So yeah, it does say here the card floor did drop, which makes sense, but I think they're sort of what do you call it, emphasizing on the poison. So that's probably what they're planning on doing with this. That's what I think they mean when they say they're pushing this card into a better direction. They're probably going to add a bit more balance towards the poison and damage here, but yeah, this was very powerful, and I like that they changed it. Next we got Percival Shooting Buck, the armor changed from 3 to 2. Yeah, this was a pretty good change, I thought. Again, Piercing Missile and Stunning Blow, and yeah, I think it was just Piercing Missile and Stunning Blow were the only cards that could really destroy this, at least without committing too much. But now with 3 to 2, you can now be destroyed by cards like Gutting Slash, and you can now easily, like, let's say you had like a Trebuchet, a Ballista, and you combine it with a Boiling Oil, and you can destroy it. So you don't need to commit as many resources to Percival and Glynis, because they also pointed out Glynis is also getting the exact same change, which is fine. Harmony obviously is a lot stronger than Assimilate, so I think it affects Percival more than Glynis, at least in terms of power. I mean, Glynis Assimilate was like, it's not as good as Harmony, at least in terms of like how much play it sees. So yeah. Great Oak power changed from 8 to 7. So It's funny because the maximum power the Great Oak was gonna give you for 13 provisions was 16. So if you had 8 units on a row and you play Great Oak, it was gonna do 16 points for 13 provisions. And the card hasn't been touched since Crimson Curse. That is insane. I actually think it should have been changed a while ago, but at least they're doing it now. With many additional ways to take advantage of Oak's effect. I mean, you introduced Swarm Dwarves and Swarm Elves and Harmony. It wasn't going to be hard to implement Great Oak, so definitely the finishing card getting a bit of a nerf was a good idea for sure. Now the maximum point is going to get is 15, but a 15 for 13 provisions is still really strong. So, but that 1 point could actually like make a pretty big enough difference, so yeah. Since lots of things on scoia'tael are shifting in this and the previous patch, I don't know about this one, but I mean, sure. We have opted to take a smaller steps toward bringing Oak back in line. Well, a lot of these changes, except for the Caretaker or the Caretaker, was changed. Or sorry, it was big, so the rest were like relatively small. But yeah, like regardless, I like the change. I think this is good. They are slightly decreasing the power of the Great Oak. Yeah. Next is Water of Brokilon provision change from 11 to 12. So these are cards like the last, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These 4 cards in one ability all came from the tier 1 Precision Strike Harmony deck that was in the meta reports. So the fact that they're nerfing all of those cards and just those cards, I thought was a big surprise. They definitely, well, they probably took this probably takes Precision Strike Harmony out of tier 1, which honestly is fine. I'm okay with it because I really don't want to see the same deck over and over. And again, I like their approach when it comes to, like, you know, changing cards and where they're going based off of, which is really nice. So Water Brokilon is now from 11 to 2. Honestly, unless you're running a lot of damage removal cards, keeping 2 engines on the board was really insane. And honestly, you could have a lot of potential and a lot of power output coming from these cards. So it could have easily became, like, let's say a 16 or 17 for 12 if they're left unanswered. So you gotta be careful with that. This is still a very good card. But that nerf actually makes it hard to deck build. Not to mention now that, like, you know, a lot of these cards got weaker and Precision Strike got nerfed in provision costs. So the deck building's definitely going to be interesting with this one. For Nilfgaard, Tactical Decision Provision bonus changed from 17 to 16. Tactical Division is one of those, like, I would consider it like a flexible leader ability. It doesn't pertain to anything special. You know, unless you're running like All Brick or Fisher King or Kingfisher, where, you know, you set a card on top, or even Yennefer Invo and you combine it with Tactical Decision, and that's like the only way I can really see it, you know, see some good combos in. Or if you can go crazy, you can play a Decoy. That's another thing. I might actually try to run a Decoy deck, because I haven't seen Decoy in a while, and Decoy is actually a very iconic card in Gwent, so it's crazy. This ability also used to give your deck the most provisions to work with, so it's adjusted slightly. Alright, fair enough, but it's like, it's not like any of the other changes sort of helped or made Tactical Decision any worse, so it's like, you know, I'm kind of indifferent. Glynis, armor changed from 3 to 2. Same with Percival, so, but for Assimilate. Now we get a little bit interesting here. Yennefer's Invocation ability, now it no longer targets artifacts. So Artifact has finally become a neutral only ability, like artifact removal. But the fact that they said we have overlooked Yennefer's Invocation as a way to limit artifact removal to neutral cards, I mean, that's the first thing people complained about when last month's patch happened. So I don't know how they missed it then, but honestly, that's fine. Better late than never, which is pretty good, I think. So yeah. I mean, artifact removal already got slammed with Caretaker. So removing the artifact removal from Yennefer's Invo, honestly, like, the options to remove artifact aren't as much anymore. So now you're just relying on Bomb Heaver and I think Dancing Star. I think there's one bomb that destroys artifacts as well. And Gascon if you want to make a Bomb Heaver and just destroy artifact, which is also really good. But yeah. So artifacts are now untouched unless you're playing neutral cards, but they can no longer be played twice unless you're Nilfgaard. And honestly, if you're playing a very fast-paced deck like Swarm decks against Poison, you're gonna do fine because again, as long as you don't play too many big units, then Poison's not gonna matter. Like, what does poisoning a 1-point drone do? Nothing. Literally nothing. If anything, it clears room for you to play stronger cards, so they're doing you a favor. Next is Syndicate and Blood Money. Yeah, ever since Wildcard got nerfed the first time, we saw a lot of Blood Money decks. Passiflora Blood Money was the most popular. It's not that there was anything wrong with the other abilities, but the ability for Blood Money to take out any engine and to get coins out of the extra was very powerful. Like, I don't see anything wrong with cards with abilities like Congregate or Off the Books. It's just that Blood Money just sort of fit in with what the meta was going. Like where the meta was going towards. So it's good that they made this nerf. Wildcard Provision further got nerfed. Oh my goodness, Wildcard is just getting destroyed. But that's crazy. But now we're probably gonna see more diverse play. Probably not Blood Money. We'll probably still see some play. You're probably just gonna degrade a card down 1 prov, and honestly, it doesn't do too much. Like, you'll still have your core of Adriano, Passiflora, Savola and Louisa, which have always been there, Imka, Philippa, Vivaldi Bank, etc. So yeah, so that's sort of all the changes. So they definitely, like, I definitely agree when they said that they took a look at the meta and definitely made changes based on which decks were performing really well and which decks weren't doing so well. That's sort of like, I kind of already explained my thoughts of it. I really like the change. Obviously, my monsters ones were my favorite because I was exploring a lot with the monsters towards the tail end of last month's meta, of the last month ladder. So I'm gonna this video is probably gonna be uploaded either later tonight or tomorrow, so Wednesday. I am going to be streaming tonight, so, but I mean, that doesn't matter because it's gonna be uploaded tomorrow. But yeah, just sort of a quick update about sort of how I'm gonna be running things. I'm gonna do a bit more streaming, so I'm gonna add an extra day to, like, an extra day a week for streaming and remove 1 day a week for uploading videos, because I also want to start exploring different decks sort of live with you guys. So definitely follow me on Twitch if you aren't following me yet, and yeah, leave a like, of course, if you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are, what changes you guys thought should have been here, what changes they could have removed, or what changes should have been like what kind of different changes that they, like, for example, if you don't think some of these cards should have gotten a nerf provision, or boost, then definitely let me know, like, what other ways they could have changed the card is essentially what I'm saying. If you have any of those comments, don't be afraid, leave it in the comments section below, and of course subscribe for more Gwent content. Other than that, this is Enzo signing out, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.